Hi, everyone. It's Angie Reed. I'm the founder and co-admin of this group, Confidence After Crisis. So many of us suffer an identity crisis after we've had a stroke, especially if you lost your career or your livelihood based on your stroke. And that's what happened to me, and that's why I wrote Identity Crisis, You Are Not Your Career. So this presentation is based on that book. I just wanted to share just a little bit more about me so that you have an understanding of where I've been and where I'm coming from. Before my strokes, I had spent about 25 years in PR, marketing, and corporate communications, working for some of the biggest brands in the world, working for one of the largest international PR agencies in the world, and always trying to achieve more and climb the corporate ladder. And my career was definitely award winning, and I was always that person that wanted to win the next award, that wanted to have that next achievement, that next promotion, and the prestige that came with those things. It was also a play on my ego because it allowed me to feel successful and to feel like I was achieving something. And I've always been kind of an overachiever. I've run 4 full marathons in my life. So I've always kind of been an overachiever in everything I do. From the day I can remember, gosh, walking and talking, I think I've been an overachiever. I don't know why, just as part of who I am. But today I'm a mother, author, speaker, 2-time stroke survivor, and life coach helping other stroke survivors reclaim their confidence after a stroke. And I like to joke around and say I'm a recovering perfectionist because I used to think being a perfectionist was a badge of honor, but honestly, it caused me so much stress and helped to increase my anxiety as I was going along because I held myself to the highest standards, and it's impossible to meet those high standards when you feel like you have to meet those in every step of your life. The impact of losing your career or your livelihood can leave you with a deep loss, fear, anger, and regret. And it can leave you with a lot of different questions. These are some questions I had, like how am I going to support myself? How am I going to support my family now that I can't bring in my salary? Because at the time of my strokes, I was the primary earner in my family. So I was really worried that it was going to throw my family into financial crisis. I also asked myself, who am I now? And what do I want? And then what do I have to offer the world now? And the larger question, what's my purpose? Because before my strokes, my purpose had pretty much always been my career. And that's probably a sad commentary on my life because also I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend. But it seemed like my whole purpose revolved around my career. That's where I got my validity. That's where I got most of my fulfillment anyway. It's important to recognize and accept that you're going to have negative emotions around an identity crisis or losing your career. The key is not to ignore those feelings of anger, fear, and resentment. Ignoring them will just push them down into your body further, and they'll have to come out at some point. So don't ignore your feelings. But you also don't have to pretend that everything is okay. They're putting on a brave face and putting on a smile so you can quote unquote fake it till you make it. None of that is necessary. It's okay to accept your feelings and to let your feelings show. But you need to accept your negative emotions to be better equipped to manage them. And if you avoid your negative emotions, that can result in things like anxiety and depression, chronic stress, stomach problems, lethargy, distraction, all sorts of other physical ailments. You all know that I talk about post-stroke anxiety and post-stroke depression a lot because they're very common. And I didn't know that when I had my stroke and when I started to experience signs of extreme anxiety and depression. I blamed it on myself. I thought I just wasn't strong enough to handle my situation. And I couldn't find any information about the link between strokes and anxiety and depression. And I was desperate for information. I was desperate for help, and I did have to go get that help. But I want to talk openly and honestly about post-stroke anxiety and post-stroke depression because, as I've said before, both conditions are very common among stroke survivors. In fact, they think 1 in 3 of us, or 1/3 of us, or even up to 1/2 of us will experience post-stroke depression or post-stroke anxiety. And if we don't get help for these conditions while we're experiencing them, or hopefully before they become debilitating, it increases our suicidal thoughts and tendencies. In fact, stroke survivors are at a higher risk of suicide than the general population. So that is just alarming, and that is so unfair because we've already been through so much with our stroke survival. We should not have to then go through a mental health crisis. But anyway, so don't avoid your feelings. Feel your feelings. Also reframe your thoughts around what's happened to you. Because what happens to you is one thing, but what you do about it is really what counts. So think about what good can come of this. I know that's a really hard question to answer after you've been through a crisis like a stroke. But there's always something good. There's always a silver lining if you look hard enough. It's not easy to do, but there's always a silver lining. And you can ask yourself, like, okay, will I have more time for my family now? For me, not working 24/7 meant that I was home 24/7, which was also a problem for me mentally. But it gave me a ton more time to be with my family. And this whole experience, the past 6.5 years, have really taught me the incredible value and importance of family and being there with my kids and being able to witness their lives growing up and them becoming fully functioning adults. And it's been awesome to witness. Also, you can ask yourself if you'll be more calm, if you'll live a more peaceful life without all the work stress. Because for me, work was constantly bringing so much stress into my life. I always worked in a high, what I call a pressure cooker environment. So I put so much stress on myself, and I was always just under so much stress, which is probably a contributing factor to both of my strokes. And you might feel the same. And then you can also ask yourself, can you find and fulfill a new purpose? This was a question that took me a number of years to ask, so I wasn't asking about purpose immediately after the stroke. I just, honestly, I was in denial. I wanted to get back to my life. I wanted to get back to my pre-stroke life and pre-stroke Angie, and I put a lot of time and energy trying to focus on going back to my pre-stroke self. But as we all know, that's not possible. We have to keep moving forward. And we have to look for and find and fulfill that purpose in our life. And to do so, we have to be kind to ourselves. There's so much to be said for being kind to ourselves. And we all talk a lot in this group about giving yourself grace, giving each other grace. Be kind to yourself. There are so many different ways to do that. So it can start with eating healthy. We know it's important for us to eat healthy and be healthy so that we don't have another stroke, hopefully, because a good diet can be a defense against another stroke. Also, if you're able to exercise, do so often, do so regularly. And if it's not hardcore exercise where you're sweating buckets, it's okay. It could be a walk around the block, or it could be just some simple chair exercises if you're wheelchair bound or you're unable to walk. The key is to move, to get some movement and some physical activity, and also strength training as much as possible, because a stronger body will help you recover faster from a stroke and will help you achieve your milestones and hit your goals in your rehab. I like to meditate. I also like to journal, and those might be a few things that you look at incorporating into your life. And just really processing your grief. Because losing a big part of yourself is like losing a loved one. It can feel like part of you has died or the pre-stroke you has died. So it's important to recognize that you are grieving, and it's okay. It's normal to grieve the lives that we lived before. But don't lose faith in yourself, really, because you've got this. And that's why I love this community that we're building here with Confidence After Crisis. I just love to watch you all share your own thoughts and feelings and share memes and images that uplift you and will uplift others. It's so important to have this sense of community. And while you're lifting each other up, you're also helping yourself. Also, don't be afraid to ask for help. This is a group that we are all here. We're all in this together. We're all having our own struggles. Chances are what you're going through, somebody else in the group is going through as well. So please feel free to ask for help. Sometimes we don't know what we need. Sometimes we don't even know what to ask for. And if that's the case, that's okay too. You can let people know that you don't know what help you need. You don't know what to ask for, but you love them and appreciate that they're there for you. Practicing mindfulness and present moment awareness is very important as well for getting grounded and staying centered and really understanding the emotions that we're feeling. And try to spend time with the people who love and care about you as much as you can. I know some of you in this group have talked about people abandoning you after your stroke, and I'm so sorry to hear that. That should never happen to us after surviving such a serious life-altering event as a stroke. But try to find people who love and care about you and spend time with those people, even if it's virtually, like in this support group or other Facebook support groups, if those are helpful too. Or join a support group, an in-person support group in your community. If you don't know where to find a stroke support group near you, you can go to the American Stroke Association. They have an online stroke groups or finder that you can put in your zip code and find a stroke support group near you. And then don't forget to continue your rehab, even if you're on your own. So rehab doesn't stop just when we are discharged from the hospital or discharged from a formal rehabilitation program. Our lives now are marked by constant rehabilitation, constantly pushing ourselves and working toward continued growth and strength in our bodies and our minds. So I'm sure, or hopefully, your physical or occupational or speech therapists gave you exercises that you should be doing at home. Don't quit. Keep doing those exercises. It's so important. Also, when you lose your livelihood or career after a stroke, there's so much fear about the unknown, and we fear the unknown. Our career or our livelihood, what we did to fill our days before our strokes. I should say that because it's not always about livelihood in the form of income. Whatever your livelihood was, however you filled your days before, they gave you a routine. They helped you live a life of routine. And sometimes you were good or even great at what you did before. In my case, I felt like I was great at my career. I loved that I was an overachiever and I was succeeding in my career and I was making more and more money and getting more and more accolades. But really those are the things that I've learned since are not as important. Anytime we have some uncertainty in our lives, that challenges our sense of control and security. And anytime your routine is upended, that also challenges your sense of control and security. Routine is necessary for the anxious mind. And any kind of career loss or livelihood loss forces you to adapt. Having a stroke forces us to adapt in so many ways. The fear of the unknown is rooted in the fear of failure, and that can make us feel vulnerable and helpless. But one of the things I coach my clients on is failure is not always a bad thing. In fact, it can be a really good thing because you can't fail if you don't try. So failure requires you to try. And the willingness to try is at the root of self-confidence. So if you're trying to build self-confidence after your stroke, you have to be willing to try. And you can't be afraid to fail because failures are lessons learned that will help guide us along our path. And I call it failing forward. So fail forward, fail often, learn from your failures and move on, move forward. And there's no sense in being afraid all the time. I also have another saying for that I'll share in a minute. So many of us suffer from a form of occupational identity. where how we make a living is closely related to our self-identity. I mean, this was me to a T. Absolutely. I couldn't introduce myself without introducing what I did for a living or where I worked or what my title was. And honestly, that's so detrimental. Who are you without your title or without your job description or where you work? Who are you? Who you are without that you use to introduce yourself to people in a new group setting or something. How do you introduce yourself? And I challenge you as well not to always lead with your stroke story. I find that difficult even 6.5 years later. For some reason, I always have to tell people that I've had a stroke. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just trying to make sure that they don't judge me too harshly if I miss a word here or there. I don't know. I don't know why I feel compelled to do that, but I do. And I need to work on that. I think it's important for us to all realize that stroke is part of our story, but it's not who we are. It's easy to become so entangled in our career. It's called career enmeshment or career entanglement, where our well-being is intricately tied to the ups and downs of our professional life. My self-confidence was so tied to how many awards I could win for my communications campaigns that I was running or promotions I could get based on the job well done. And if I didn't get the promotion or I didn't win an award, it always made me feel like crap and made me lose a little faith in myself. And when that's gone, when that constant reassurance in what you're doing is gone, it can make your self-esteem plummet. And if you're so blinded to the ups and downs of your career, if you are only thinking about your professional career, you've been blinded to the other amazing experiences in your life. Like for me, it was mostly paying attention to the small things, paying attention to nature, paying attention to my family. Those were all things that I started to pay much closer attention to after my stroke. And here are a few ways to consider moving forward. So volunteer. You can volunteer your time and your talents. We're doing so much to help ourselves, and volunteering can help others while helping ourselves. Also, you can think about ways to use your experience in a new and different way. Can you go to a local elementary school and use your experience to help kids learn? Can you do more with your church? Can you do more with your rehab facility where you got your rehab? Is there anything you can do to give back and get involved and use your unique skills and abilities to improve those programs? And also using your unique perspectives to improve those programs. So what did you learn and how can you pay that forward? And just really exploring new opportunities, exploring new avenues. Get out and meet new people and try new things, because you never know what that next connection is going to bring to your life. It could bring a great friend. It could bring a new opportunity. You just never know. And always seek support when you need it, because we're not on an island by ourselves. There are 800,000 strokes a year in the U.S., and there are so many of us that are struggling. So when you can network with like-minded people, you can give each other ideas and give each other inspiration. So within this Facebook group, we can give each other ideas about different ways to make maybe a part-time income online or virtually. We can give each other suggestions and ideas. And it's also important to continue learning. I am a lifelong learner. I love to learn new things. And guess what? My stroke brain is still able to learn and process new information. All of our brains are making those new neuro connections. The neuroplasticity of our brains is amazing. And if you're feeding it more information, feeding it new information, it's firing on all cylinders and it's helping to heal itself. And then, like I talked about earlier, practice self-care. Self-care is not self-indulgent. It is not selfish. It's necessary. It's necessary for us to continue to move forward, because what we're doing is hard. Recovering from a stroke is hard work, and it's not for the weak. The fact that you're here, you're still alive, means that you are strong. You're stronger than you give yourself credit for. I promise you that. So I'm going to stop here because I could go on and on. I've got so many slides, but it's really important to make sure that we've thought about how we're healing and that what we're going through is hard. It's not easy for any of us, but as long as we're here to support each other, we've got each other's backs. And within this community, we can strengthen the bonds that we have, and we can help build each other up and move forward from an identity crisis. But if we can recognize that we're grieving and we can take steps to positively impact the rest of our lives and make the rest of our lives have meaning as much as possible, we can develop the confidence to continue going. I'll close by reminding folks that my books are out there. I've offered so many free downloads in our group. I'm not trying to get rich off of my books, and by no means will I ever get rich off my books, but I love to write because that's one of my gifts and talents, and if I can write and make it be meaningful and helpful for other stroke survivors, that just fills my cup.